Hello, curious minds. Welcome to this intellectual journey. Have you ever stopped in the middle of a busy day, looked at a cup of coffee or a tree, and wondered, what does it actually mean for this to exist right in front of me? Not as atoms or biology, but as pure experience. Before we begin, a brief note. To bring this narration to life, I have used artificial intelligence tools to generate the images you see. Think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and the atmosphere of what we are discussing. They will not always be a literal representation, but rather a visual accompaniment to let your imagination fly with me. I truly hope you enjoy it. That seemingly simple question is the spark that ignited one of the greatest revolutions in 20th century thought. We are talking about Edmund Husserl, the father of phenomenology. A man who dared to say that science had forgotten the most important thing, life itself. Today we are going to deconstruct his philosophy. Do not worry about intimidating academic terms. We are going to go step by step from the crisis of the sciences to the discovery of the transcendental ego. Get ready to change the way you see, literally, everything around you. To understand Husserl, we first must understand the world he lived in. Born in 1859, Husserl started out as a mathematician. Yes, you heard that right, a mathematician. His initial obsession was not the soul, but numbers and rigorous logic. However, he noticed something unsettling. At the end of the 19th century, psychology was trying to devour logic. It was believed that the laws of mathematics were simply laws of how our biological brain works. This was called psychologism. Husserl realized that this was a fatal error. If 2 plus 2 is 4 only because my brain says so, then truth is not universal. It is a biological whim. He was looking for a truth that was solid as a rock, independent of our psychology. This led him to write the Logical Investigations in the year 1900. It was an intellectual earthquake. Husserl separated logic from psychology, but in doing so he encountered an even bigger question. How is it that our consciousness can grasp eternal truths? The real adventure begins here. Husserl observed that we live our lives in what he called the natural attitude. We wake up, hop on the bus, pay taxes, and assume that the world is out there, independent of us. It is common sense. In the natural attitude, we take the existence of objects for granted. We see a chair and think, that is wood and fabric, a physical object in space. Science does the same. It measures, weighs, and calculates things it assumes are already there. But is that all? Husserl says, hold on a second. If we want to know the radical truth, we cannot take anything for granted. Not even the existence of the external world. It is not that we deny the world exists, it is that we are going to suspend our judgment about it. We are going to put it in brackets. He called this act of suspension epoche. It is a Greek word used by ancient skeptics. Imagine you turn off the switch that says it is real, and you simply stay with the experience of seeing it. That is the epoche. When we perform the epoche, the physical world does not disappear. The chair is still there in my vision. But now I no longer care if it is made of atoms or if it exists outside of me. Now I only care about how it presents itself to my consciousness. It becomes a phenomenon. Phenomenon in Greek means that which shows itself. Phenomenology then is the study of how things show themselves to consciousness. It is the science of pure experience before any scientific theory or prejudice. Think of it this way. An astronomer looks at the moon and sees mass and craters. A poet looks at the moon and sees melancholy and beauty. For Husserl, both are valid experiences that consciousness constructs. Phenomenology wants to study that construction, but what remains when we put the world in brackets? If I remove the belief in external reality, am I left with nothing? No, I am left with something absolutely indubitable. My own consciousness perceiving something. This leads us to the most famous concept in phenomenology, intentionality. Husserl adopted this term from his teacher, Franz Brentano. The idea is simple but powerful. All consciousness is always consciousness of something. We never have an empty mind. We are always thinking about something, fearing something, loving something, remembering something. Consciousness is not a box where we put things. It is a beam of light projected toward objects. This intentional arrow has two poles. On one hand, the act of thinking, which Husserl called gnosis. On the other hand, the object as it is thought, which he called noma. Gnosis and noema are inseparable, like two sides of a coin. Let's analyze gnosis. It is the subjective act. I can perceive the same tree with love, with fear, or with mathematical indifference. The physical tree does not change, but my noesis, my way of directing my consciousness toward it, completely changes the phenomenon. And the noema is the result. It is the loved tree, the feared tree, or the calculated tree. For the phenomenologist, the noma is the reality we must study, because it is the only reality to which we have direct access. Now, let's go deeper. Husserl realized that this phenomenological cleaning leads us to discover a deeper self. In the natural attitude, I am a human being with a name, a history, and a body. He calls that the empirical self. But when I perform the epoche and suspend everything, even my own name and biological history, there is still someone observing. There remains a pure subject that is not part of the world, but is the spectator of the world. Husserl calls it the transcendental ego. The transcendental ego is not a ghost. It is the very structure of subjectivity. It is the stage where the play of life takes place. Without this ego, there would be no world for anyone. The world is constituted within this ego. This is where Husserl becomes an idealist in the philosophical sense. He does not say that matter does not exist, but that the meaning of matter, its significance, and its validity only exist thanks to the consciousness that constitutes them. But be careful, it is not that I create the world like a magician. It is that I give it meaning. A book without a reader is just paper and ink. It is consciousness that constitutes it as a novel, as a work of art, or as a paperweight. One of Husserl's most brilliant analyses is about time. Not clock time, which is mechanical ticking, but the internal time of consciousness. How do we experience a melody? If we only heard the present note, there would be no music, only isolated noises. To hear a melody, my consciousness must retain the note that just passed and anticipate the one that is coming. Husserl called this retention and pretension. Time consciousness is a continuous flow. The living present is a thick point that includes a comet's tail of the immediate past and a projection toward the immediate future. Without this, we would have no sense of identity or duration. So far, it all seems very lonely. Me, my consciousness, my time. This led Husserl to face a harsh critique. Does phenomenology fall into solipsism? Am I the only thing that exists? Husserl struggled with this in his Cartesian meditations. His answer was intersubjectivity. He discovered that in my own field of experience, I encounter other subjects who are not things. I perceive them as other selves. Through empathy, I recognize that that other body out there also has an inside. It also has a transcendental ego. And most importantly, the world I see is the same one they see. The world is objective because it is intersubjective. In other words, reality is a shared hallucination, but one validated by the community of egos. If I see a dragon and you don't, I am crazy. If we both see it, it is real. Objectivity is built together. In his final years with Europe on the brink of disaster in the 1930s, Husserl introduced a vital concept, the life world, or Lebenswelt. He felt that modern science had become dangerously disconnected from our human experience. Science tells us that the table is empty space and force fields. But in the life world, the table is solid, hard, and is used for dinner. Husserl warned that if we forget the life world, science loses its meaning and its ethics. The crisis of European sciences, he said, was a crisis of humanity. We had mathematized the universe so much that we had excluded ourselves from it. Phenomenology was the desperate attempt to put the human being back at the center of knowledge. Now, let's pause and recap. We have gone from the critique of psychologism to the epoche, to intentionality, to the transcendental ego, and finally to the life world. It is a monumental theoretical building. But why is it so hard to read Husserl? Because he never stopped starting over. He was an eternal beginner. He would write, correct, and start again. He believed that philosophy should be a rigorous science, and that required obsessive precision. His legacy is incalculable. His assistant was Martin Heidegger, who took phenomenology and transformed it into existentialism. Sartre, Merleau-Ponty, Levinas, Derrida, all 20th century continental philosophy drinks from this source. Heidegger brought phenomenology down from the heaven of pure ideas to the ground of concrete existence. Sartre used it to talk about radical freedom. But none could have taken a step without the lantern that Husserl lit. Husserl taught us how to see. He taught us that consciousness is not a passive mirror, but an active agent. He taught us that truth is not hidden behind the world, but is right there on the surface if we know how to look. Let's go back to the famous phrase, to the things themselves. It doesn't mean going to physical objects. It means going to direct experience before theories tell us what we should see. It is a call to radical intellectual honesty. In a world dominated today by algorithms and big data, Husserl is more relevant than ever. He reminds us that data means nothing without a consciousness to interpret it. Technology is useful, but it is not the ultimate reality. Phenomenology is an antidote to dehumanization. It forces us to remember that behind every statistic, every user, every number, there is a lived world, a Lebenswelt, full of meaning and pain and hope. So the next time you look at a cup of coffee, try to do a little epoche. Forget its price, its chemistry, its origin. Just look at it as a phenomenon. See the color, feel the heat, the way it presents itself to you. You will discover that the world is much richer and more mysterious than it seems. You will discover that you are not just inhabitants of the universe, but the witnesses who give it light. That is the promise of phenomenology. Husserl died in 1938, marginalized by the Nazi regime due to his Jewish origin, watching as irrationality consumed Europe. But his faith in reason and in the human spirit never fully went out. His manuscripts, thousands of pages of almost indecipherable shorthand, were saved clandestinely and taken to Leuven, where the Husserl archive is located today. Thanks to that, his thought survived to enlighten us today. To close, I want to leave you with a reflection. We do not need to be academic philosophers to be phenomenologists. We only need curiosity and the courage to question the obvious. Reality is waiting to be rediscovered. I hope this journey through the mind of Edmund Husserl has opened a new window for you. If it has been a bit dense, do not worry. Phenomenology is a path, not a destination. Take your time to digest it. Let's delve a bit deeper into a detail we skipped. Eidetic variation. It sounds complex, but it is a fascinating mental game. Husserl invites us to use imagination to find the essence of things. Imagine a table. Change its color, the material, the size in your mind. Is it still a table? Yes. Now take away the flat surface. Is it a table? Perhaps not. By varying the object in the imagination, we discover what is essential and invariable. This is crucial because Husserl believed that philosophy should not study contingent facts, like this table is brown, but universal essences. He wanted to find the invariable structure of reality. This search for essences connects Husserl to Plato, but with a difference. Essences are not in another celestial world. They are here, embodied in phenomena, waiting to be intuited by consciousness. It is a transcendental idealism, but deeply rooted in experience. There is no essence without experience, but experience without essence is a blind chaos. Husserl seeks order within the flow of life. Now let's talk about inner subjectivity and the body. Husserl calls the own body Leben, which is the lived body, as opposed to Körper, which is the physical body as an object. I do not have a body, I am my body. My body is the 0 point of my orientation in the world. Everything is to the left, to the right, near or far in relation to my lived body. It is the absolute anchor of my phenomenological experience. When I see another, I see their Körper, their physical body. But through their gestures and movements, I intuit their Leben, their internal life. It is an analogical pairing. I see they behave like me, so they must feel like me. This breaks the loneliness of solipsism. The world is not my private dream. It is a common world, constituted by a community of monads, of egos that communicate and mutually validate reality. However, this community is always fragile. Communication can fail, misunderstandings exist. But the very possibility of objective truth rests on this transcendental intersubjectivity. Husserl also explored history, not as a list of dates, but as the sedimentation of meanings. The geometry we learn in school has a history. Someone had to discover it for the first time. We inherit those meanings already made. Husserl calls this sedimentation. His goal is to reactivate the origin, to re-understand the original sense of sciences and traditions so as not to repeat them like parrots. This is what makes his philosophy critical. He does not accept tradition blindly. He asks us to trace the genealogy of our beliefs back to their source in original lived experience. In this sense, phenomenology is an invitation to responsibility. We are responsible for the meanings we accept and perpetuate. We cannot blame the system or history. We are the carriers of meaning. Returning to the crisis of the sciences, Husserl saw that modern technique was turning the world into a resource to be exploited. If we remove subjectivity, nature is just dead matter. And that is dangerous. His warning resonates today with climate change and artificial intelligence. If we forget that technology must serve the life world and not the other way around, we run the risk of destroying the very ground of our existence. Husserl was not a Luddite. He loved science, but he wanted a science with a soul, a science that recognized its roots in human experience and did not forget who it works for. It is fascinating to think about the evolution of his thoughts, from the rigid mathematician to the philosopher of history and the vital world. It was a journey of constant opening, of breaking his own frameworks over and over again. Sometimes he is criticized for being too intellectual, for ignoring dark passions or the instinctual body, things that Freud or Nietzsche explored. And it is true, Husserl was a rationalist to the core. But his rationalism was not cold. It was a heroic rationalism. He believed that reason was the only tool we had to live together in peace and truth. In times of barbarism, defending reason is a revolutionary act. Now, a small imagination exercise for you. Look at the screen where you are seeing this. Don't look at the video, look at the frame, the light, the reflection. How is that object given to your consciousness? Is it flat? Does it have depth? That small shift in focus is the door to phenomenology. It is realizing that we are always interpreting. We never see the world as it truly is. We always see it dressed in our concepts and intentions. This sets us free. If we know that we construct meaning, we also know that we can change it. We are not trapped in a fixed reality. We are co-participants in the creation of the world we inhabit. Phenomenology also influenced psychology, sociology, and anthropology. Alfred Schutz applied this to understand how we construct society, Social reality is also an intersubjective construct. Understanding this makes us more tolerant. We understand that the other lives in their own life world, with their own sedimentations. Dialogue is the attempt to fuse horizons, as Gadamer, another heir, would say. So Husserl is not just for dusty libraries. It is for the street, for politics, for relationships. It is a tool for radical empathy and the deep understanding of the human being. We have covered a lot of ground, from the epoche to the life world. I hope you do not feel overwhelmed, but rather stimulated. Philosophy is a gym for the mind, and today we have lifted some heavy weights. Remember that Husserl's philosophy is a method, not a dogma. You do not have to agree with everything he said, but the tool of suspending judgment and looking closely is useful for anyone. If you take away just one thing from this video, let it be this: do not take anything for granted. Reality is a gift given to us moment by moment, and it deserves our full attention. The return to the things themselves is a return to the innocence of the gaze. It is seeing the world again with the wonder of a child, but with the maturity of a thinking adult. It is an awakening. Thank you for joining me in this immersion into phenomenology. I know it is a dense topic, but I firmly believe that the difficult ideas are the ones that make us grow the most. If you like this approach, there is much more to explore. We could talk about Heidegger and being, or Sartre and nothingness. The history of philosophy is inexhaustible and fascinating. I would love to know what you think. Does this idea of constructing reality make sense to you? Or do you believe the world is objective, period? Let me know in the comments. I read and learn from you. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to keep nurturing your intellectual curiosity. Here we don't look for easy answers. We look for the right questions. And together we are going to find them. I am your host on this journey of knowledge. Thank you for your time, which is the most valuable thing you have. Keep questioning, keep observing, and above all, keep thinking. See you in the next reflection. Until then, keep your eyes open and your mind awake to the things themselves.